In the northern savannas of Ghana, along the river basins of the White Volta and its tributaries, lies a quiet patch of earth that has kept a secret for centuries. The area is known today as Koma Land. It is a place of winding streams and sacred groves, where modern villages rise beside earthen mounds, mounds that once meant something far more than dirt and stone. In the mid 1980s, archaeologists began formal excavations in villages like Yikpagongo, Tondo, and Natinga. What they found inside the mounds astonished the world. Hundreds of terracotta figurines, stylized, expressive, and often otherworldly. Some looked human, others were animals, frogs, monkeys, birds, and many were combinations of both or something else entirely. Figures with elaborate headgear, bulging eyes, or bodies pierced with small tubes. Some were seated, others kneeling, and some held bowls or weapons. Some were even hollow and once contained organic material, perhaps medicine or remains. They were not randomly placed. These figures were carefully arranged in layers inside burial mounds, many of which contained human skeletal remains beneath. These were not art for art's sake. They were ritual objects, deliberate, ceremonial, and sacred. Radiocarbon and thermoluminescence dating place this cultural activity broadly between the 5th or 6th centuries and 14th century CE. Though still debated, the evidence suggests that these communities lived and created across a span of many centuries, perhaps from the late Iron Age into the early medieval era. So, who made them? Who were these people? That answer is far more complex than it first appears. Today, the region is inhabited by the Koma people, speakers of Koni, a Gur language. When researchers first encountered the terracottas, it was tempting to draw a direct line between the people living in the area now and those who built the mounds centuries ago. But further linguistic and historical research, especially the work of Naden and Kroger and Sabu, shows that the modern Koma likely migrated into the region after 1880. This suggests a historical break between the original mound builders and today's communities. And yet, the connection is not lost. Modern Koma communities often protect these ancient mounds. Shrines have been built atop them. Oral histories recall their discovery of strange items in the soil. The reverence is real, even if the ancestry is not direct. As Franz Kroger pointed out, heritage is not always a matter of blood. Sometimes it is about stewardship, about the responsibility to care for a memory you did not create, but that now shapes the land you call home. So, who were the people who came before then? We do not know their name. We don't even know the language they spoke. But through their artifacts that they left behind, there is something we do understand: imagination, ritual, and the power of symbols. To step into a Koma burial mound, even in imagination, is to step into a world of symbols, unfamiliar yet purposeful. Archaeologists have documented an astonishing range of artifact types, far beyond simple figurines. Over 2,000 terracotta objects have been studied to date, many from stratified sealed contexts. The diversity is striking. There are anthropomorphic figures, some with serene faces, others contorted in dramatic expression. Many are missing arms, not from decay, but by design. And others have perforated heads, perhaps used for libations or smoke rituals. Some figurines appear to be pregnant, while others wear what look like helmets or even masks. Some squat in meditative poses. The symbolic meanings remain unknown, but the consistency in forms suggests shared beliefs or ritual practices across generations. Then there are the zoomorphic forms: frogs, monkeys, snakes, birds, each sculpted with stylized precision. In some contexts, animals are stacked, combined, or fused with human features. These were not realistic depictions, they were mythical depictions of themselves and the animals they saw around them. And finally, there were objects that defy easy category: vessels shaped like heads, small cylinders with hollow interiors, miniature stools, pestles, bracelets, pipes. Some of these might have been containers for medicinal plants or bones, and others may have been charms or ceremonial instruments. And in several mounds, archaeologists found cowrie shells, sometimes inside vessels, sometimes scattered among the terracotta. These cowries likely arrived through ancient trade routes stretching across the Sahel and beyond, and may have symbolized wealth, fertility, or spiritual protection. Whether used as offerings, currency, or sacred markers, their presence hints at a larger cultural and ritual economy, one that connected the Koma people to wider networks across West Africa. Scholars like Franz Kroger and James Ankwanda have proposed that these items formed part of a complex belief system, one that involved ancestor worship, healing, protective magic, and transformation. But these remain hypotheses, rooted in careful comparison, not in definitive proof. What we can say with confidence is that the mounds themselves were ritual spaces. Most were built from earth and stone, layered over time, and often contained multiple human burials, sometimes with grave goods, sometimes without. And the mound typologies differ. Some are shallow domes, others rise like small pyramids. In some cases, the surrounding village seems to have been built around the mounds, suggesting that these were not just cemeteries, but spiritual centers. Now, when researchers look to interpret these findings, they often turn to nearby cultures for clues. The Mamprusi and Dagomba peoples to the west maintain traditions of shrine building, spirit veneration, and healing practices that echo, though do not duplicate, some Koma features. To the north and east, Gurunsi speaking groups also share a material culture shaped by terracotta figurines and earth mounds, though stylistic differences remain. And yet, the Koma figurines stand apart. Their surreal style and intense symbolic layering do not match Nak, Jene, or Bankoni traditions directly. They are, as Kroger once said, an independent invention, a local shared language developed in situ, within the specific ecology and spiritual worldview of this region. What links them to others is not a copy of form, but a rhythm of life, a shared West African sense that ancestors remain present, that earth can be sacred, and that memory is something to build around. This is where archaeology becomes more than science. It becomes interpretation, an attempt to read a culture that left no written words, but whose symbols still speak in clay. In archaeology, silence is not emptiness, it is invitation, and Koma Land is filled with just enough silence to stir debate. We know that the figurine making culture flourished for centuries, likely from the 5th or 6th century up through the 14th century. But then the trail fades. No written records, no clear evidence of conquest or collapse, just absence. So what happened? One possibility is migration. The people who built the mounds may have moved gradually or suddenly due to environmental pressures, political shifts, or spiritual decisions. The region is prone to periodic droughts, trade routes change, and power centers rose and fell nearby. These shifts often left smaller societies vulnerable or uprooted. Another theory is assimilation. The mound builders may not have disappeared at all, but instead were gradually absorbed into neighboring groups. Cultural traditions fade, language shifts, and ritual objects are left behind. Over time, only fragments remain. There is also the real possibility of trauma, conflict, disease, forced relocation, but without textual records or unmistakable archaeological markers, these remain educated guesses. Still, some tantalizing clues remain above ground. In many villages across the region, sacred groves are still tended. Herbalists, shrine keepers, and elders perform rites that, while now shaped by more ancient belief systems, echo patterns seen in the ancient mounds, offering spirits, libations poured onto the earth, the use of symbolic objects in healing ceremonies. One of the most striking parallels is the way the modern Koma communities treat the mounds themselves. They are not just archaeological sites, they are living places. Many have become sacred shrines. Visitors are often warned not to disturb them. Some say the spirits buried beneath the clay are still listening. This cultural continuity, though not biological descent, matters. It suggests that the knowledge system of the Koma culture was not entirely lost, that even across the gaps of language and migration, something held firm: a reverence for earth, for ancestors, and for the power of sacred form. Researchers today tread carefully in these regions. Excavations are often done in consultation with local leaders. Some sites are now protected under Ghanaian heritage law. International teams have partnered with community members to ensure that what is uncovered is not simply removed, but understood and respected. And in recent years, the work has expanded beyond the mounds. Geological surveys, aerial mapping, and soil analysis are revealing wider settlement patterns, farm fields, water channels, and what may have been ritual pathways. It is becoming clear that the mound sites were not isolated. They were part of a broader landscape of meaning. As with many ancient cultures, we are left with partial truths. We know they shaped clay with vision and purpose. We know they buried their dead with care. We know they believed in something worth protecting, worth building mounds for. But we do not know are their names, their language. And maybe that is why their story continues to matter. Because even in silence, they left behind something that draws us in. So what does all of this mean? At first glance, the Koma culture might seem like a local curiosity. A few hills, some clay figures, a remote past with no written names. But take a step back and look again. What we see in Koma Land is part of something much larger. A vivid reminder that African history is not a blank canvas waiting to be filled. It's already full, layered, complex, and in many cases deliberately overlooked. The Koma terracottas challenge a long-standing myth that cultures without writing were cultures without sophistication, that burial mounds are primitive, that sacred objects must be literal. But the truth is, these figurines reveal an abstract language of spirit and identity crafted centuries before European contact, before colonial narratives distorted what counts as civilized. They show us that ritual was not separate from daily life. It was the structure of life. These were communities with symbolic systems, medical knowledge, agricultural rhythms, and spiritual depth. And they were not alone. Across West Africa, from the Niger River to the Sahel, other terracotta traditions speak in clay. But the Koma stand out for their surrealism, their quiet power, and their continued presence in the living memory of the region. Today, a new generation of Ghanaian scholars, artists, and community members is re-engaging with this legacy. Figurines are now held in museums from Accra to Berlin, though questions of repatriation remain open. And cultural festivals and local histories increasingly include the mounds as part of their shared story. Some speculate, carefully, that aspects of Koma ritual knowledge may survive in local herbal practices, in patterns of shrine building, or in the symbolic meanings attached to animals and ancestors. These links cannot be claimed with certainty, but they invite deeper dialogue between archaeology and living tradition. And maybe that is the point. Koma Land reminds us that history is not just about origins, it is about continuities, quiet, unbroken, and often hidden beneath the surface. The people who built these mounds may not speak through text, but they speak through form, through patient hands that shaped clay into memory. And the people who live among the mounds today, whether or not they descend from the same bloodline, are now the caretakers of that memory. That is legacy. That is connection. And so when we look at a coma figurine, be it a kneeling healer, a horned creature, or a silent guardian, we're not just looking at the past. We're being asked to listen to stories not yet finished, and to ancestors still watching, to the earth still speaking. If this story moved you, share it, talk about it, explore more, because the past is not dead, it is buried, and sometimes it waits for someone curious enough to dig.